HMS Implacable was an Implacable-class aircraft carrier built for the Royal Navy during World War II. Upon completion in 1944, she was initially assigned to the Home Fleet and attacked targets in Norway for the rest of the year. She was subsequently assigned to the British Pacific Fleet, where she attacked the Japanese naval base at Truk and targets in the Japanese home islands in 1945. The ship was used to repatriate liberated Allied prisoners of war and soldiers after the Japanese surrender. For the rest of the year, Implacable returned home in 1946 and became the Home Fleet's deck landing training carrier, a role that lasted until 1950. She briefly served as the flagship of Home Fleet in 1950. During this time she participated in many exercises and made a number of port visits in Western Europe. She was placed in reserve in 1950 and converted into a training ship in 1952, and served as flagship of the Home Fleet Training Squadron. The ship was considered for a major modernization in 1951-52, but this was rejected as too expensive and time-consuming. Implacable was decommissioned in 1954 and sold for scrap the following year. Design and description. The Implacable class had its origin as an improved version of the Illustrious-class aircraft carriers for the 1938 naval program. They were designed to be 2 knots faster, and to carry an additional dozen aircraft at the expense of reduced armor protection to remain within the 23,000 long tons available from the tonnage allowed by the Washington Naval Treaty. Implacable was 766 feet 6 inches long overall and 730 feet at the waterline. Her beam was 95 feet 9 inches at the waterline, and she had a draft of 29 feet 4 inches at deep load. The Implacable-class ships were significantly overweight and displaced 32,110 long tons at deep load. The ships had metacentric heights of 4.06 feet at light load and 6.91 feet at deep load as completed. Implacable's complement was approximately 2,300 officers and enlisted men in 1945. The ships had 4 Parsons-geared steam turbines, each driving 1 shaft, using steam supplied by 8 Admiralty 3-drum boilers. The turbines were designed to produce a total of 148,000 shp, enough to give them a maximum speed of 32.5 knots. On sea trials, Implacable reached speeds of 31.89 knots with 151,200 shp. She carried a maximum of 4,690 long tons of fuel oil, which gave her a range of 6,720 nautical miles at 20 knots. The 760-foot armored flight deck had a maximum width of 102 feet. A single hydraulic aircraft catapult was fitted on the forward part of the flight deck. The Implacable-class carriers were equipped with 2 lifts on the centerline, the forward of which measured 45 by 33 feet and served only the upper hangar, and the aft lift which served both hangars. The upper hangar was 458 feet long and the lower hangar was 208 feet long. Both had a maximum width of 62 feet. Both hangars had a height of only 14 feet, which precluded storage of Lend-Lease Vought F-4U Corsair fighters as well as many post-war aircraft and helicopters. Designed to stow 48 aircraft in the hangars, the use of a permanent deck park allowed the Implacable class to accommodate up to 81 aircraft. The additional crewmen, maintenance personnel and facilities needed to support these aircraft were housed in the lower hangar. The ships were provided with 94,650 imperial gallons of aviation gasoline. Armament, electronics and protection. The ship's main armament consisted of 16 quick-firing 4.5-inch dual-purpose guns in 8 twin-gun turrets, 4 in sponsons on each side of the hull. Unlike the illustrious-class ships, the roofs of the gun turrets were flat and flush with the flight deck. The gun had a maximum range of 20,760 yards. Her light anti-aircraft defenses included 5 octuple mounts for QF 2-pounder anti-aircraft guns, 2 on the flight deck forward of the island, 1 on the aft part of the island and 2 in sponsons on the port side of the hull. A single quadruple 2-pounder mount was also fitted on the port side of the hull. The 2-pounder gun had a maximum range of 6,800 yards. The ship was also fitted with 61 Oerlikon 20mm autocannon and 19 single and 21 twin-gun mounts. These guns had a maximum range of 4,800 yards, but some were replaced by 40mm Bofors AA guns when the ships were transferred to the Pacific Theater, as the 20mm shell was unlikely to destroy a kamikaze before it hit the ship. The Bofors gun had a maximum range of 10,750 yards. 2 additional quadruple pom-pom mounts were added to Implacable before she joined the British Pacific Fleet in 1945. By the end of the war, she had 4 single Bofors guns, plus 17 twin and 17 single Oerlikon mounts. By April 1946 these had been reduced to 12 Bofors guns, 8 twin and 14 single Oerlikon guns. The specifics of the Implacable-class ship's radar suite are not readily available. They were fitted with the Type 277 surface search, height-finding radar on top of the bridge and a Type 293 target indicator radar on the foremast. The ships probably carried Type 279 and Type 281B early warning radars, based on the radars fitted aboard the illustrious-class carrier Victorious late in the war. In addition, Type 282 and Type 285 gunnery radars were mounted on the fire control directors. The Implacable-class ships had a flight deck protected by 3 inches of armor. The sides of the hangars were either 1.5 inches or 2 inches. The ends of the hangars were protected by 2-inch bulkheads, and the armor of the hangar deck ranged from 1.5 to 2.5 inches in thickness. The waterline armor belt was 4.5 inches thick, but only covered the central portion of the ship. The belt was closed by 1.5 to 2-inch transverse bulkheads fore and aft. The underwater defense system was a layered system of liquid and air-filled compartments as used in the illustrious class. The magazines for the 4.5-inch guns lay outside the armored citadel and were protected by 2 to 3-inch roofs, 4.5-inch sides and 1.5 to 2-inch ends. Construction and service. Implacable was laid down by Fairfield Shipbuilding and Engineering Co. at their shipyard in Clydeside on the 21st of February 1939 as yard number 672. Her construction was temporarily suspended in 1940-41, in favor of higher priority ships needed to fight in the Battle of the Atlantic before she was launched on 10 December 1942 by Queen Elizabeth. Captain Lachlan McIntosh was appointed to command the ship in November 1943. She was commissioned on the 22nd of May 1944. and began sea trials which revealed a significant number of problems that required rectification, so the ship was not formally completed until the 28th of August. Implacable was assigned to the home fleet and was working up over the next several months while the Fairey Fireflies of 1771 Squadron flew aboard on the 10th of September. The squadron was followed by the Fairey Barracuda torpedo bombers of 828 and 841 squadrons that made up No. 2 Naval Torpedo Bomber Reconnaissance Wing. Later that month, her first mission was to locate their German battleship Tirpitz, which had left its anchorage in Kafjord in early October. Implacable departed Scapa Flow on the 16th of October, and a section of her Fireflies spotted the battleship off Akoya Island near Tromsø 2 days later. No attack was mounted because the carrier lacked any single-seat fighters aboard to escort the strike aircraft, although they did damage a cargo ship before returning home. On the 16th of October, the Supermarine Seafires of 887 and 894 squadrons of No. 24 Naval Fighter Wing landed aboard. In late October she participated in Operation Athletic off the Norwegian coast, where her aircraft sank 6 ships and damaged a German submarine for the loss of 1 Barracuda, while conducting the Royal Navy's last wartime torpedo attack. On the 1st of November, Captain Charles Hughes Hallett relieved McIntosh and assumed command of the ship. The Barracudas were replaced by the Seafires of No. 30 Naval Fighter Wing, which consisted of 801 and 880 squadrons. On the 8th of November, and the Seafires provided air cover for minilaying operations by escort carriers from 11 to the 21st of November. The next day, Admiral Sir Henry Ruthven Moore, Commander-in-Chief of the Home Fleet, hoisted his flag in Implacable, and the ship set sail to hunt for a convoy that had been reported near Alston Island with the Seafires and Fireflies of 801, 880, and 1771 squadrons aboard. Bad weather prevented aircraft from being launched until the 27th of November, but they located the convoy and sank 2 merchantmen, including MS Rigel, and damaged 6 others. Upon her return to Scapa on the 29th of November, Moore lowered his flag, but Vice Admiral Sir Frederick Dalrymple Hamilton, second in command of Home Fleet, hoisted his flag on the 6th of December for Operation Urbane, another mine-laying operation during which her Fireflies helped to sink a German minesweeper. Dalrymple Hamilton transferred his flag off Implacable when she returned to Scapa on the 9th of December. On the 15th of December she began a refit at Rosyth preparatory to her transfer to the British Pacific Fleet, which included augmenting her light AA armament. Upon its completion on the 10th of March 1945, 801, 828, 880, and 1771 squadrons re-embarked with a total strength of 48 Seafires, 21 Grumman TBF Avenger torpedo bombers and a dozen Fireflies, the largest air group aboard a British carrier thus far. Implacable departed 6 days later to join the BPF and arrived at Port Said, Egypt, on the 25th of March. While passing through the Suez Canal, a strong gust of wind forced her ashore, and it took her escorting tugboats 5 hours to pull her off. Undamaged, she proceeded on her voyage and reached Sydney on the 8th of May 1945. Implacable arrived at the BPF's main operating base at Manus Island, in the Admiralty Islands, on the 29th of May. A week later, Rear Admiral Sir Patrick Brind hoisted his flag in preparation for Operation Inmate, an attack on the Japanese naval base at Truk in the Caroline Islands that began on the 14th of June. having flown 113 offensive sorties over the 2 days of the attack with only one loss of a ceasefire to enemy action. The carrier and her escorts returned to Manus Island on the 17th of June. On the 30th of June, No. 8 Carrier Air Group was formed, absorbing No. 24 Naval Fighter Wing, to control all of the air units aboard Implacable. After working up, she sailed to join the main body of the BPF off the Japanese coast on the 6th of July, and rendezvoused with them 10 days later. Implacable flew off 8 Fireflies and a dozen Seafires against targets north of Tokyo on the 17th of July, but only the Fireflies were able to locate their targets because of bad weather. 8 Fireflies and 20 Seafires attacked targets near Tokyo the next day, before more bad weather halted flying operations until 24-25 July, when the BPF's aircraft attacked targets near Osaka and the Inland Sea, crippling the escort carrier Kaiyo. After replenishing, airstrikes resumed on 28 and the 30th of July, the British sinking the escort Okinawa near Maizuru. A combination of bad weather, refueling requirements and the atomic bombing of Hiroshima delayed the resumption of their operations until the 9th of August. During the day, Implacable Seafires flew 94 sorties and her Fireflies flew 14 against targets in northern Honshu and southern Hokkaido for the loss of 2 Seafires. The attacks were repeated the next day, sinking 2 warships, numerous small merchantmen and destroying numerous railroad locomotives and parked aircraft. The BPF had been scheduled to withdraw after the 10th of August to prepare for Operation Olympic, the invasion of Kyushu scheduled for November, and the bulk of the force, including Implacable, departed for Manus on the 12th of August. Her aircraft flew over 1,000 sorties since her arrival the previous month. Post-war she arrived at Sydney on the 24th of August, and had her hangars refitted to accommodate Allied powers and soldiers for repatriation. Having left her air group behind to maximize the numbers of passengers she could carry, the ship arrived at Manila on the 25th of September, where she loaded over 2,000 American and Canadian POWs. She dropped off the Americans at Pearl Harbor on the 5th of October and continued on to deliver her Canadian passengers at Vancouver 6 days later. Opened for public tours, Implacable remained for a week before sailing to Hong Kong to pick up several hundred POWs and continued onwards to Manila to load 2,114 more passengers. She delivered them to Balikpapan, Borneo for transshipment to Britain. In the place the carrier embarked 2,126 men of the 7th Australian Division and their equipment to return to Australia. She arrived at Sydney on the 17th of November and sailed on the 8th of December to load more returning troops from Papua New Guinea. Arriving back at Sydney before Christmas, the ship had her additional bunks, etc., removed to return her to operational status. In January 1946 her air group flew aboard, minus the disbanded 880 Squadron, and with 1790 Squadron replacing 1771 Squadron. After several days of flying exercises, Implacable made a port visit to Melbourne together with her sister Indefatigable and several other ships. She became the flagship of Vice Admiral Sir Philip Vian, the newly appointed second-in-command of the BPF on the 31st of January. She continued a relaxed schedule of training and port visits until she began a refit on the 15th of March in Sydney, that lasted until the 29th of April, when she put to sea to fly on her aircraft and to dump overboard the 16 Lend-Lease Avengers belonging to 828 Squadron. She sailed for home on the 5th of May and reached Devonport on the 3rd of June, where Vin struck his flag. Implacable became the deck landing training carrier for the home fleet when she next put to sea in August. On the 25th of September, Captain Aubrey Mansberg assumed command of the ship. 2 months later, she participated in an exercise with the home fleet and was lightly damaged when she collided with the light carrier Vengeance while docking in Devonport on the 7th of November. On the 1st of February 1947, she joined the other ships of the home fleet as they rendezvoused with the battleship Vanguard, which was serving as the royal yacht to escort King George VI as he set out for the first royal tour of South Africa. Implacable hosted the king and his family on the 7th of February, staging a small air show for them, after which the Queen addressed the crew. After leaving the Royals, she made ports visits at Freetown, Sierra Leone, and Dakar, Senegal, before arriving in the Western Mediterranean for more training. Arriving home on the 7th of March, she began a lengthy refit at Rosyth on the 17th of April. Upon its completion in October 1947, she embarked 813 Squadron, flying Blackburn Firebrand TF-5S, and resumed training. Captain John Stevens relieved Mansberg on the 9th of February 1948, as the latter had been promoted. In June and July, the ship participated in a series of demonstrations for students in the Royal Navy's Staff College. Among these was the first carrier landing by a Gloster Meteor jet-powered fighter, flown by Lieutenant Commander Eric Brown, landings by prototypes of the Westland Wyvern and Short Sturgeon, rocket firing by Fireflies, and an attack on Implacable by motor torpedo boats. She completed a 10-week refit on the 10th of November and resumed deck landing practices. She sailed for Gibraltar on the 27th of February 1949, and 801 Squadron flew aboard on the 5th of March with its de Havilland Sea Hornets. The day after she arrived there, Admiral Sir Roderick McGrigor, Commander-in-Chief of Home Fleet, hoisted his flag aboard the carrier on the 6th of March before beginning a short exercise with some of the other ships of Home Fleet. She made port visits in Oslo and Bergen, Norway in June, hosting King Haakon VII. While berthed at Portsmouth, King Abdullah I of Jordan visited on the 19th of August, and the Prime Minister, Clement Attlee, visited 10 days later. 702 Squadron flew aboard with 7 de Havilland Sea Vampires in September to conduct carrier evaluations with the new fighter jets that lasted until the 11th of November. McGrigor was relieved by Admiral Vian 10 days later. Implacable spent February and March 1950 training in the Western Mediterranean, and Captain H.W. Briggs assumed command on the 1st of April. She resumed flight training in the Irish Sea and off the western coast of Scotland until she made a port visit to Copenhagen in mid-July. King Frederick IX of Denmark inspected the ship on the 18th of July, and Admiral Vian transferred his flag to Vanguard on the 11th of September. 2 days later, she was placed in reserve and slowly converted into a training ship by the addition of extra accommodation and classrooms. During this time, she was considered for a major reconstruction that would combine her 2 hangars into a single hangar with a height of 17 feet 6 inches and allow her to operate 30,000-pound aircraft. In addition, her armament would be modernized and the fuel supply for her aircraft would be more than doubled. A similar reconstruction was then in progress for Victorious, but it proved to be much more expensive than planned and also took more time than had been estimated. Short of both both time and money for the project. The Admiralty cancelled the modernization in June 1952. Implacable was recommissioned on 16 January 1952 as the flagship of the Home Fleet Training Squadron. On 13 February she arrived at Dover to serve as the port's guard ship before and after the state funeral of King George VI, to salute royalty and heads of state arriving by sea. After its conclusion, the ship sailed for the western Mediterranean to rendezvous with her sister for exercises. In June, the two sisters represented a fast troop convoy being attacked by aircraft during an air defense exercise. They visited Copenhagen in the next month before returning home. Implacable sailed for Gibraltar on 25 September and made a port visit to Lisbon, Portugal before returning to Devonport for a refit. On 16 November she had an oil fire in her galley that damaged her electrical wiring badly enough to require extending her refit to 20 January 1953. She spent most of February and March in the western Mediterranean together with her sister, participating in exercises before sailing to Southampton for a brief refit. For the Coronation Fleet Review of Queen Elizabeth II on 15 June, she flew the flag of Vice Admiral John Stevens, her former commanding officer, now flag officer, Home Fleet Training Squadron. On 5 September, Rear Admiral H.L.F. Adams relieved Stevens and the ship joined Indefatigable for fleet exercises off the Scilly Isles and in the Bristol Channel the following month. She ferried the 1st Battalion, Argyll and Amp, Sutherland Highlanders from Devonport to Trinidad in response to a crisis in British Guiana, and transported a battalion of the Royal Welsh Fusiliers from Trinidad to Jamaica in October, returning home on the 11th of November. On the 19th of August 1954, she was relieved as flagship by the light carrier Theseus. Decommissioning and disposal. Implacable decommissioned on 1 September 1954 and was sold to Thos W. Ward for breaking up on 27 October 1955 after being towed to Gaelic. Implacable was scrapped at Inverkeithing beginning the following month. Squadrons embarked. Bibliography. Brown, David. World War II Fact Files. Aircraft Carriers. New York, Arco Publishing. ISBN 0-668-041641. Brown, J.D. Carrier Operations in World War II. Annapolis, Maryland, Naval Institute Press. ISBN 978-1-59114-1082. Campbell, John. Naval Weapons of World War II. Annapolis, Maryland, Naval Institute Press. ISBN 0-87021-459-4. Chesno, Roger. Aircraft Carriers of the World, 1914 to the Present, an illustrated encyclopedia. Annapolis, Maryland, Naval Institute Press. ISBN 0-87021-9022. Chesno, Roger, ed. Conway's All the World's Fighting Ships 1922–1946. Greenwich, UK. Conway Maritime Press. ISBN 0-851771467. College, J. Warlow, Ben. Ships of the Royal Navy. The Complete Record of All Fighting Ships of the Royal Navy. London, Chatham Publishing. ISBN 9781861762818. OCLC 67,375,475. Friedman, Norman. British Carrier Aviation. The Evolution of the Ships and Their Aircraft. Annapolis, Maryland, Naval Institute Press. ISBN 0-87021-0548. Hobbs, David. British Aircraft Carriers, Design, Development and Service Histories. Barnsley, UK. Seaforth Publishing. ISBN 9781848321380. Hobbs, David. The British Pacific Fleet, the Royal Navy's most powerful strike force. Annapolis, Maryland, Naval Institute Press. ISBN 9781591140443. Lenton, H.T. British NAMP, Empire Warships of the Second World War. Annapolis, Maryland, Naval Institute Press. ISBN 1-55750-048-7. McGart, Neil. The Illustrious and Implacable Classes of Aircraft Carrier 1940–1969. Cheltenham, UK. Fan Publications. ISBN 1-901225-046. Rowe, Jürgen. Chronology of the War at Sea 1939–1945, The Naval History of World War II. Annapolis, Maryland, Naval Institute Press. ISBN 1-591141192. Sturtevant, Ray. The Squadrons of the Fleet Air Arm. Tunbridge, Kent, UK. Air Britain. ISBN 0851301207.